Right, happy Wednesday, everyone. Excited about today's topic. Got a lot of traction and a lot of engagement about this seller call topic when I posted this on Facebook. So, super excited to field some questions and see what's going on, what kind of questions I can help answer, and just kind of share a little bit about what we do with our seller calls. Um, so when we do seller calls, we actually do them in two steps. So I'll do a first call and then a second call one and call two. And so the first thing that we do with that call one is we want to make sure that every single lead that comes in, we do a call one. So what we're doing on that call one is we have a few goals. The first goal is to just make sure that we're verifying the ownership. We want to make sure that we're talking to the right person, that they actually own that property for that particular contact. The second thing is that we want to qualify the lead. That's probably one of the most important things that we are looking to do on that very first call one. We want to make sure that the lead is qualified. And I'll go into that in just a minute. And then the third thing is we want to schedule the call two if we have determined that it is a qualified lead. So we look for those three things to do. Those are our three big goals on that first call one. Every lead gets a call one, and we're always looking to verify the ownership, qualify the lead, and then schedule the call two. So our very first issue with when we're dealing with landowners is that I came from a background of wholesaling houses, and so I was used to motivated homeowners, but that looks very, very different in the land ownership space. So while someone might be super motivated to sell their house, they've got like a lot of financial pain. They might be about to lose their house. They may be homeless if they lose their home. That's some intense financial pain, right? There's emotional connection to it. What am I going to do with my family? Maybe they have an emotional attachment to the house. So there's a lot of motivation, a lot of like super clear pain that can be heard when you're talking to a homeowner. But we don't really see the same type of motivation in land for a number of reasons. But one of the most obvious reasons is because if it's a piece of vacant land, no one's actually living on that property. So if they don't have that property anymore, it's not like they're going to be homeless, right? The other thing is lots of times the landowners that I come across, they own the property free and clear, right? So typically banks don't like to lend on vacant infill lots. So usually it's a cash purchase. And so they're not like in financial distress. So we don't see the same level of pain or motivation in landowners that we see in homeowners. So I actually don't like to call landowners motivated or unmotivated. I like to just call them qualified. So with my team, we're not looking to figure out if they're motivated. We're looking to just qualify them. So on that first call one, everyone gets a call. Every lead gets a call because we have to qualify that lead. So we'll call to qualify the lead, and we do that by asking just a few questions. One of the things that I learned really quickly is when you start talking to landowners, some of them will give you their entire life story, and an hour later you're like, oh, like, so do you still want to sell the property or what's going on? So I kind of figured out that there's a few questions that we can kind of get right to the core of their situation and see, like, are they actually qualified to move forward to do a call to? And so the questions that I ask are very first thing is I like to ask, so how did you come into owning the property? I want to know, what is the backstory? How did they buy the property? Why did they buy the property? Were they planning on building there one day? Were they planning on retiring? Did they inherit the property? That's going to give me a little bit of insight about their mental and emotional space around the property, because I just want to know, like, are they going to be super attached to it? And you can start getting a lot of information just from how they talk about the property, right? I talked to a seller, and she was saying how beautiful the views are, and it was just absolutely amazing, and everything about this property was incredible. And that pales in comparison when you're talking to an owner, and they're like, yeah, well, I got the I bought the property and with my husband, and then we divorced and we never did anything with it, and just ready to get done, be done with it. So um, you can definitely tell a lot about a seller's mind space when you ask them, tell me a little bit about the property. How did you come into owning the property? So that's the first question. The second question is, I like to ask, do you know if you have any liens or back taxes on the property that are owed? I want to make sure that there's not a ton of liens on the property, HOA liens, tax liens, things like that. Typically, the owner will know, and that will come out whenever we do a title search if we do move forward with the property. But I just like to kind of get their feeling around if they know what's owed on the property. That way, I can sort of, again, pull a little bit more of their mental space, a little bit more of their financial situation out without asking them like flat out, are you going to sell this at a discount kind of thing. The next thing is I always like to ask, why are you selling the property? So that is going to give me a little bit of insight about what their true motivation is behind why they want to sell the property. So they may say, well, I want the money to be able to go go on a vacation with my wife, to Italy or whatever it is. Or I just don't want the property anymore. I'm tired of paying back taxes, or I'm tired of paying taxes on the property, right? So getting a little bit of insight as to why are they selling the property, why are they interested in selling the property, that is a really, really big one. And then finally, one of the things that we ask is, if we were to come to some type of agreement on the price, would you be willing and able to sell the property in the next 30 days? That gives me a little bit of insight into their mindset, exactly what type of, are they really looking to move this thing? How attached are they? Like, where are they in the sort of that seller's journey psychologically about, okay, I'm ready to sell, or I haven't thought about it, or maybe I'm just entertaining the idea. So those sets of questions sort of gets to a lot of different psychological components that the buyer or that the seller needs to have in order to be able to pull the trigger and actually sell. So those are our qualifying questions. I see we've got some questions coming in. Great content, Kendall. Thanks so much. So big question for me. What do I do if a seller ghosts me? That's a really, really good question. And actually, I'm going to talk about that right now. So on our call one, after we have asked our questions and we've qualified just those 4 questions, we get right to the meat of the issue. We find out if they're qualified or not. If we realize that they are qualified, they are looking to sell, they're ready to go, then what we do is we actually schedule a call 2 with them right there on the call. So this has been really big. We actually use Calendly, so you can get a free subscription to that. We use Calendly. We book all of our calls on Calendly, and we're able to input their email address and the phone number, and they'll get automatic updates. The really cool thing about that platform, Calendly, is that will also feed into your Gmail or Google Calendar. And so even if they don't accept the Google Calendar invite, it'll automatically show up on their Google Calendar if their email is connected to a Gmail account. So that's been a really powerful, helps to remind people, kind of like, hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like we've got a meeting coming up. And so that has helped tremendously with sellers ghosting us for the second call. So we'll do the call 1. We'll figure out if they're qualified. If they are qualified, we'll schedule a call 2 right there on the call. So we'll get them booked on the calendar, and it'll automatically send some auto updates. If they are not qualified, then we move them to like a cold list that we will, when we have time, we'll take a look at it. When we have time, we'll run comps, that kind of thing. But if we can tell that they're not really qualified, they're not really interested in selling, then we'll just go ahead and not move forward with running due diligence. Because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are prioritizing all of the leads that really want to sell their properties. We want to prioritize those people. We want to talk to those people first. And so call 1, are they qualified? If yes, we schedule that call 2. And then after we schedule a call 2, that's when we start running comps and determining our offer. We don't run comps on things that are not qualified or anything like that, just because it just kills a lot of time. We want to prioritize all of the leads that are interested in selling and are ready to go. We'll run comps on those people. between call one and call two. All right, we have some more questions coming in. It says, how do you continue with the person who may just be shopping? I just want to see how much I can get. Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So those people are not what we would consider qualified. So if they're not really interested in selling, if you can tell that they're just interested in how much will you give me for my property, we ask that question. If we come to an agreement on the price, if you like the price that we give you, would you be able to close in 30 days? If you start hearing, I'm not sure, I'd have to think about it, I can't say for sure, then that's probably not a very qualified lead. We're not going to move to the next stage, which is running comps and that type of thing. So we'll just say, listen, if you're not really interested in selling, we don't want to waste your time. We don't want to waste our time. We just want to be respectful of everyone's time. So if you are interested in selling, please reach out to us. Here's our contact information. And we move on to a qualified lead. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. The next question is, thank you. Is there a limit on too much contact? So we do have certain follow-up procedures that we follow, depending on where they are in the follow-up process. So for example, if it's a call one, where we have not talked to this person yet at all, we tried calling them, we can't get a hold of them, we'll probably do a follow-up cadence every week, like once a week until we get them on the phone. If it is a call two and we couldn't get them, like they didn't make their event schedule, their call scheduled on that call two, they didn't answer our call or whatever it was, but we've already talked to them, then we'll be a little bit more aggressive with the follow-up, because now we have an offer and we want to start communicating with them. So we might contact them twice a week, right? In that particular cadence. Let's say we've talked to them and we've made an offer and we've negotiated and we've gone back and forth and we want to follow up on where we are with that. Because we know that they've negotiated, they're a lot warmer of a lead. They're a hot lead. So we're going to follow up with them even more. So we might be 3 times a week until we get them on the phone to be able to get to the next step of the process. Finally, if we have a contract, or if we've sent them a contract, they haven't signed it yet, but they've accepted our verbal offer, we're going to probably contact them daily until they either answer the phone and say, stop calling me, or they sign the contract, right? So it just depends on which stage of the process they're in the acquisitions phase of how much contact we actually do. But the way that I look at it is, if we've talked to them and they've indicated like, yes, I want to sell my property, we're offering them a solution. So it's not too much contact if we're trying to help them do the thing that they said they wanted to do in the first place. All right, so let's see. We have another question. It says, I missed the 4th qualifying question. Could you please repeat it? Yeah, so the 4th qualifying question that we ask is, if we were to come to an agreement on price on this call, would you be able to close, and would you be willing to close in the next 30 days, right? So if they say, no, I'm not interested in that, or I'd have to think about that, or wow, 30 days is kind of quick, then we know that they're not really primed and ready to go yet. That might require a little bit more follow-up. So let's see, next question. What was the free scheduling tool you said you use? Yeah, we use a free version of Calendly. So you can sign up for a Calendly account. It's absolutely free. It will take care of everything that you need. To start, there are different paid options that you can do. And so I think the higher the paid options, the more things that you can do, like schedule multiple types of call reminders and things like that, and kind of automate that process. So Calendly is the tool that we use. Do you make offers if you haven't spoken to them for first call, i.e. can't get a hold of them? I don't, just because we do a lot of neutral marketing. So we do cold calling. All we're doing when we have a cold call lead is shout out to Lead Mining Pros that does our cold calling, Nick. Anytime we get those cold calls, really what Nick's company is doing is they're calling to see if they're interested in selling their property. They are asking different questions, sometimes about ownership, about the state of the lot, that kind of thing. So we have some initial questions answered, so we don't go into call one completely cold. But beyond that, once we get those warm leads from lead mining, then we call that call one to qualify them a little bit further. Because if we can tell that they're just tire kicking, like we're not going to waste our time running numbers and doing due diligence. So in comparison to like, let's say like a blind offer, right? Where you would comp an area and then just send out the offers before you even talk to them. I like to do neutral just because I want to get them into my funnel. That way I can talk to them and nurture the leads. All right, break down the tools you use: CRM, dialer, SMS, mail, etc. Yeah, so we actually use Pebble CRM. Big shout out to Jesse Kwong and those guys. Fantastic CRM, Pebble. Dialer, we don't use a quote unquote dialer because we're not doing our cold calling. We have Lead Mining Pros do our cold calling, but we do use for all of our call software, we use OpenPhone because OpenPhone will allow us to record all of our conversations. And I really like to use that for training purposes with my team. I like to be listening to their calls, seeing, how are they approaching the sales calls and things like that. So that's a really powerful tool for calling. For mail, we use Supercharged Offers. Shout out to Alicia Jarrett. So she takes care of all of our mailing and our data. So hope that answers your question. Next, let's see, what marketing works best for you? SMS, cold call, mail, etc. We actually use a combination of all of those. So with Lead Mining Pros, they do some of our texting and cold calling, and then for our mail, we use again Alicia Jarrett. We also do with Supercharged Offers. We also do a combination of some omni-channel marketing where we will send emails, and we also do Facebook digital ads and retargeting and things like that, all through Supercharged Offers. So if you haven't checked out Supercharged Offers, definitely do that. Some super powerful tools there. All right, let's see. Have you used RE Simply? I have not. What do they do? What do they do? Let me know. Okay, let's see. Are you using your personal number? No, I don't use my personal number. We use OpenPhone, so you can actually buy a phone number through OpenPhone. I think it's like $1. OpenPhone software is $20 a month, and every additional number I think is $1. And so we have a separate number for our outgoing calls, and then we have a separate number for inbound for both acquisitions. So if someone calls back our marketing, that's an open phone number that we use. And then if someone wants to call in to make an offer for our dispo on our dispo side to buy a property, we have a separate phone number for that. So I like to keep all of those separate, and they're all through open phone. So I don't use my personal number. All right. Do you offer coaching or training on creating notes or seller financing? I do have a coaching program, and that is something that we do talk about. It just depends on the deal, structuring the deal. So if you're interested in coaching, send me a message on Facebook Messenger, or you can send me an email at onlylandfans.com, and happy to chat about that. What is the cadence of your call, mail, text, Facebook ads? So we do, I think right now we're sending out 4,500 mail pieces a month. We are doing, for cold call, I believe we're doing about 3,000 cold calls every campaign as well. And then the Facebook ads are retargeting. So let's say someone gets our letter, and then on the letter, there's like a cool little QR code. And so they can actually scan that QR code. It takes them to our website. And then that automatically registers in our system. The specific property owner has just checked that QR code. And then when they go to that email site, that website, then that attaches a pixel to their specific IP address. And then it sends out retargeting Facebook ads. So it's kind of like for Facebook ads, it's a little bit, it's retargeting. So it's not like actively pushing out an acquisitions campaign. All right. Ari simply, they're like Pebble, but their demo is bomb, has a dialer, CRM, mailing, text automation. Awesome. That's amazing. I've never tried it. I use Pebble. I love Pebble. They also have their CRM, mailing, text automation. They also have email automation, some really cool follow-up features that they just created and introduced into the platform. So that's been really fun. We're working with that. So let's see. Are you calling the same list that you are texting? What do you do first? So we actually, again, we leave that up to Nick at Lead Mining Pros. But essentially, what they do is they'll pull, like for a campaign. I'll give you an example. So what we'll do is we'll pull like 2,000 records, and then they'll send 1,500 text messages, and then there's 3,000 cold calls. Those cold calls also include some follow-up, and so sometimes we might text an entire list, or we'll text 1,500 people. If those people don't respond, then they'll call them back off of that same list. So we're targeting. We're doing targeting, retargeting, and follow-up using cold call and SMS. All right, dispo side. What if a realtor sends an offer for a buyer and includes a closing title company to use? What if they are not investor friendly? How to navigate that? Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have had that happen. We have that happen a lot, actually. We always insist on using our own title company. That's just because we know that the title company will do the deals and structure the deals the way that we want to do them. If they are assignments, if they're double closes, if they're pass-through closings, not every title company will do that. And so we like to control as much of the transaction as possible. And so we will always, even if I have to pay for the title costs, I will do that just so I can close it at my title company. If they are insistent on closing at their title company, I'll go ahead and call their title company and see, like I'll do an interview with them, and I'll see, are they able to do assignments? Are they able to do a double close, a pass through, whatever transaction structure that I want to use for that particular deal? I'll call and see what their process is for that. And if they don't play ball, if they're not investor friendly that way, then I'll just say, hey, listen, the title is already open at my title company. I really don't want to move it. I will pay for the title policy, and we can split some of the closing costs, but it really needs to close at my title company. And typically buyers don't really have an issue with that, especially if you throw some money at them. So with all of those marketing, how many deals do you average per month? Yeah, so it depends. We're kind of playing around with a few different markets. Different markets yield different things, right now we are in we're in the 4th month of a particular campaign, and we've got about 64 leads, I believe, that we're working actively right now. We have 4 under contract. We have 3 in dispo. And so that's just sort of like the little bit of a smaller targeted campaign that we're running. That's a 6-month campaign. Alrighty, let's see. I ordered Nick's package today. So happy to see you're a happy client. I am a super happy client. And anyone that asks like, hey, what's the best way to do cold calling? I always will say Nick, right? Go to Supercharged Offers. Lead Mining Pros. And if you want to do mail and all of the data pulling and scrubbing and cleaning and all that good stuff, mail, website, your digital marketing, all of that's Supercharged Offers, definitely, for sure. And so we actually work hand in hand with Supercharged and Lead Mining Pros. All right, let's see. You said in your Facebook post that there was a difference in getting owners of land fired up versus house owners excited to talk to you. Something about owners wanting to turn their pile of dirt into cash. Yeah, so ultimately, again, whenever we're qualifying these leads on call 1, we have to figure out, why are they wanting to sell their property? So whenever we talk to them, that's one of the questions that we ask. Why are you interested in selling? If they say, well, I'm not interested, you contacted me, I'll always come up with a follow-up question and say, okay, well, what do you plan on doing with your property? Right? Like, you told me you bought it 20 years ago, you haven't done anything with it. What's your plan for the property? And so if they're like, well, I really don't have a plan for it, I say, okay, well, it's worth X, 20,000. what could you do with 20,000, right? Like, do you just want it to sit there, or, have you thought about what you could do with 20,000? I'll try to make it light and try to start building some rapport, maybe with some jokes, like, have you thought about going on that vacation or something like that, right? 20,000 can buy a lot of wine, whatever it is, right? And so that's something that we do just to kind of poke and prod a little bit, just to see, where are they? Not all sellers are gonna like be excited to throw their property at you. And so we just don't work with those people. There are plenty of people out there, plenty of deals to go around, so much land out there. And so it's just better to work with people that are interested and open to selling versus trying to change someone's mind about selling their property. They don't want to sell. That's great. Hold on to it. You're not for us. We'll go to the next one. All right. I'm trying to figure out how to scale my business. Do you have a team of people that you train and manage, or do you strictly use Nick Lead Mining Pros as your team? I do have a team that I work with. So I have several virtual assistants on my team. Again, I also use Supercharged Offers as a vendor as well for my marketing specifically. But my team, my in-house team, we don't do lead gen. We leave that up to Supercharged Offers. We hire that out for lead gen. For acquisitions, my team does acquisitions. My team also does dispo, and we also do transaction coordination. So all of the other steps of the process, my in-house team does. All right, thanks. You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Love chatting about this. All right. Someone says, what about sellers who are adamant about using their title company? So I've never really had an issue with a seller saying, I want to use my title company. And there have been some people that are like, I would like to use my own, but they haven't been adamant about it. So what I do in those situations is I like to kind of dig in and say, okay, well, tell me a little bit about that title company. Why do you want to use that specific title company? And usually it's something like, well, I've done business with them before and that kind of thing. And I say, okay, great, cool. Well, this is what we do as our business. We do this professionally. And so the title companies that we use are actually skilled and trained and specialize in doing these specific types of transactions really, really quickly, right? And so because of the fact that we pay all closing costs whenever we are dealing with sellers, so when we are working on the acquisition side, we cover all closing costs. So typically, it's kind of real estate etiquette that whoever pays for the closing kind of calls the shots at where it's going to be closed. So I'm paying for the closing, I'm paying all of your closing costs, I'm paying for the title policy, so we're going to use my title company. So that usually kind of, squashes anything that they have issues with. They're like, oh, you're going to pay for it? Cool. Wherever you want to go. All right, going back to question number 4 with the 30 days, do you always buy the properties rather than assignments, for instance? No, I don't. So oftentimes, it just depends on the deal. Sometimes we'll close on the property, sometimes we'll assign, sometimes we will do a double close, sometimes we'll do a pass-through close. It just depends on what types, on what the numbers look like in that deal, what market we're in, like which buyers I know that we already have lined up. So there's a lot of different factors that go into figuring out how we're going to structure the deal. But just asking that question up front is, if we come to an agreement, are you willing to close in the next 30 days? That's not like a hard and fast, we're guaranteeing we're going to close, because we still have to negotiate. We still have to look and see if this is even a deal that the numbers work, right? So we're not committing to that. This is just sort of like a litmus test to see how serious are they about actually selling. If I could make them an offer at a price that they absolutely love, will they sign closing docs in 30 days? All right, let's see. Next question. Are you pitching them on getting them cash flow before asking your qualifying questions? I don't. Just because I don't want to spend any time on someone that is not ready to play ball. So I'm not saying like, let me get you cash, I'm going to get you cash flow. I just want to know like about the property. Tell me, how did you get the property? Why are you selling the property? If we come to an agreement, would you be willing to close in 30 days? That will tell you a lot about the seller's psychology and where they are in that sort of seller journey, if you will. All right, let's see. Um, Next question. Would you mind sharing your monthly acquisitions budget and average number of deals? Yeah, so our acquisitions budget right now, um, I believe we are at something like 4,500, I believe, and we're getting roughly 4 deals, something like that. I might be completely off on that, but I that's the numbers that comes to mind, and that sounds right for this particular campaign. Keep in mind, we run different campaigns. Like this campaign that we're running is a 6-month campaign that also includes following up and retargeting people. So I'm retouching people that we sent stuff to in month 1. I'm retouching them in month 4. So it's not completely all new contacts that we're going after. So it's a little bit different in that way. All right, let's see. How do you convince a buyer to use your title company? I really don't convince anyone to do anything, right? It's about giving them expectations and making sure that their expectations are in alignment with your expectations. And so, as the professional in the scenario, I say, this is what we do, this is how we do it. And so, typically, I mean, if a buyer says, well, I really want to use my title company, let's say that you're working with, sometimes builders have strong relationships with title companies because they do a lot of these types of transactions. So if that's the case, then it's really just about contacting that title company and seeing if they're willing to structure the deal the way that you want to structure the deal. So typically, if it's something where it's a builder that buys lots of infill lots, typically that title company is a little bit more user friendly, or not user friendly, but investor friendly. I think that you start running into issues when you're working with title companies that only know how to do, are only familiar with like the traditional, you buy first and then turn around and then schedule, a closing several weeks later with a buyer. So we typically don't have those. We don't run into that issue a lot. But again, if their title company just doesn't play ball with you, always offering to pay for title closing costs, that usually helps the buyer to come around and use my title company. The other thing too is, like let's say you have multiple offers on a property. If I know that one offer is maybe a couple of $1,000s less, right? And they are willing to use my title company, I will go with that person, that offer, over a buyer who may be $2,000 higher and insist on using their title company, and their title company is not investor friendly, right? Because you really can't do anything with that type of title company. If they're not willing to structure the deal the way that you need to structure it, then you can't really do anything with it. So it's not always highest price. That's also a term that we negotiate. All right, let's see. Awesome. Thank you. Loving your content. Awesome. Thank you so much. So glad that you're finding it helpful. It's been really fun to chat about it. All right. What do you say to sellers who say, make me an offer? I actually love that. So I have gone back and forth with this quite a bit. I know a lot of people feel like if you give a number first, then you're sort of giving away your power in negotiation. But I actually like to make the offer first. I like to put the very first number out there because it anchors their expectations. And so what I mean by that is, let's say you run the numbers between call 1 and call 2, you get your offer ready, and you realize your offer range is going to be somewhere 20 to 30,000, right? You call back for call 2, you're ready to make the offer. And if you allow them to give you a number first, what happens if they throw out like, okay, I want $90,000? It's really hard to walk $90,000 down to 20 or 30,000, right? So I actually like to throw the number out first because it anchors your expectations. So, the reverse side of that is if I say, well, listen, we can be in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $23,000, right? it's sometimes very difficult for a seller to be like, well, I was thinking 90,000, right? They'll second guess. A lot of times they'll second guess what their expectation is, or they may say, well, how did you get to that number? Which I'm happy to walk through, right? We get through that number by looking at what is actively sold and what is currently listed in that particular area. So it to me, it just helps to kind of keep those expectations in a reasonable place. That way the numbers don't get crazy and people are just like pulling out numbers because that's what they feel their property is worth. It allows me a little bit more control. All right, so some really fantastic questions. If you have more questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Happy to answer those questions. So I'm going to come back to the call sequence that we do. So remember I said how we do call 1 and call 2. Call 1, we're basically calling to qualify those leads. If they're qualified, then what we do is we run comps and we figure out what the offer range is going to be. And then we do call 2. On call 2, what I'm doing is I'm making the offer, I'm negotiating. What that looks like is, let's say once the verbal offer is accepted, what we'll do is right there after the verbal offer is accepted, we say, yes, 20,000, great, 20,000 sounds good. Let's do this, right? Once a verbal offer is accepted, I actually send them a document while we're on the phone, and I'll either send it via text or email, and it's a document that is our roadmap to closing. What this does is it just lays out the 4 steps to what they can expect when they do a closing with us. And so we sort of started realizing that there was a need for this whenever we would, I think everyone kind of has a story about they talk to a seller says, yes, let's do this. They sign the purchase agreement. And they're like, all right, give me my check, right? Well, that's not how it works. Like we have to go through a title company. The money has to go through escrow. The title company is going to send you the check. So there's a lot of misaligned expectations. Again, we want to control expectations because we are the expert in the situation. And so what we figured out, what really works well for us is we send them that roadmap to closing. It's a cute little like cartoon map thing that has 4 different steps. Step 1 is that you and I both sign our purchase agreement. Step 2 is the title company will then send you a seller questionnaire that you need to make sure that you fill out and get back to them so they can start running a title search. Step 3 is that we're going to start doing due diligence on the property, deeper due diligence, getting contractor bids, things like that. So we know how much it's going to cost to build on the property, if we have to do any type of soil tests, things like that. And then once everything is free and clear, we're good to go. Title search comes back clear. We're ready to go. Our numbers make sense. Step 4 is then we both sign closing documents, and then the title company will send you a wire or a cashier's check of your choosing, right? So they understand that there's a 4-step process. Once we go over that with them, we ask, do you have any questions about that? No questions. Great. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send you our purchase agreement right now via DocuSign or PandaDocs or whatever digital signing software you use. I'm going to send this over to you. I'm going to stay on the phone. I want to make sure that A, you get it, B, you're able to open it. So once that pops in, can you go ahead and open it up for me? Great. They do that, open it up, and then I will say, okay, this is our purchase agreement. And we start going through the purchase agreement with them. So instead of reading it for them, we'll just give them sort of a little bit of a paraphrase. So we take out all the legalese and we explain it in clear language and ask, does this make sense? Do you have any questions about this? We do that for the entire purchase agreement. It's a 1-page purchase agreement, so it's not anything crazy. It's not like 9 pages or anything, but it's about 10 or 15 minutes of explanation and answering questions. That way, by the time we get to the end of it, we say, okay, do you have any questions about this at all? No, everything looks good. Great. So go ahead, and if you don't have any questions, go ahead and click the sign button, because I want to make sure that it actually translates and it comes into our system that it has been signed. So they go ahead, click sign, and so we actually sign purchase agreements on the phone with people. We used to lose so many people by sending the purchase agreements and then waiting for them to sign, and then they ghost us and they never sign it, right? A lot of that time is because, they have questions about the purchase agreement and they don't understand how it works, or they may have some questions that they're afraid to ask. And a confused mind always says no. So if they don't understand something, if they think something means one thing when it actually means something else, they'll kind of fill in the blanks with their own stories, and they just won't sign the purchase agreement. So by going over the purchase agreement with them, it answers a lot of questions, and we're able to help control, again, the situation a little bit more. So using that roadmap to closing, aligning expectations, that really, really helps. And also going through that purchase agreement, getting them to sign, that also really helps to make sure that everything is as smooth and as easy, friction-free as possible for the seller. All right, let's go back to some questions here. When you are too far apart after you've made your offer, they still want retail. How do you explain the gap? Why so low? Yeah, so that actually starts with call one. Whenever I call and position myself, um, I'm going to say, hi, I'm a real estate investor. I'm buying land in the neighborhood, yada, 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 yada. So they understand, number one, I am a real estate investor, right? That means that most people understand that that means that I'm not buying their property for fun. I'm not buying their property because I want to build a house on it and live in it myself. I am buying this as a business. I have a business set up to do this particular business model. And so they understand that there's going to be something in it for me, right? So what I do is when we get to call two, we make the offer. They're like, well, why is it so low? Okay, so do you remember how I said I have a business that does this? This is how I make my living. I have to have some type of spread, right? I have to be able to make some type of profit on this, and it needs to be a win-win scenario. I need to make profit. You need to get what you need out of the property. That way, everyone walks away happy, right? So that's the first step. You can really sort of help to position yourself by how you frame your interaction with the seller. The second thing is, if they still want retail. If they still want retail, I say, listen, I'm not your guy. I cannot buy retail. That doesn't fit my business model. But if you're sure that you want retail, because you can get more for the property if you list it with an agent, right? You can get a higher price than what I can pay. If you're willing to list it with an agent and wait and pay closing costs and pay agent commissions, you can get higher. So if you're interested in getting a higher amount for that property and paying those extra fees and commissions and waiting on the market to see if it sells, I actually work with a whole network of agents that I can connect you with that they actually specialize in land in your area. So is that something that you're interested in? Because if you only want retail, I can connect you and make that introduction. Because you said that you wanted to do XYZ with this money. And so I'm going to help you to do that any way that I can. So if you only want retail, I'm not your buyer, but we can go ahead and help you list it. The reason why I do that is because agents have referral fees, right? So oftentimes an agent will, pay a referral fee because I'm bringing them a seller. I'm bringing them a listing, right? So that's another way that you can kind of get a little bit of profit for your time. So I hope that makes sense and answers your question. Also, there's another thing, why so low? We don't really get into, defending the price. We just explain we make our offers based on what is sold and what is actively listed in the market right now. And so that's probably about the extent that I will say this is why the price is what it is. There's some education that has to go into that because a lot of people want more than retail price. And so they have to just understand what's actually selling, what has actually sold. There's so many people that are like, well, I saw my neighbor has their property for $300. And I'm like, well, great. Your neighbor has been waiting to sell his properties from the market for 375 days. It hasn't sold because they're asking way too much. But what has actually sold is more like 150,000, right? So there's some education that has to come along with that. And so we just make sure that we kind of bake that into how we handle the sellers. All right, what is the hook with the seller to schedule call two? And are you gathering more info on call two or just making an offer? So sometimes we'll get a little bit more information on call two if we can't find certain things in our due diligence process when we are researching the market, when we are coming up with our offers. But we're typically not gathering a whole lot of information. We're really just calling to make that offer. So the hook with the seller to schedule call two, I think what you mean is how do I get them back on the call? What I do is at the end of call one is I say, okay, well, I think I have all the information that I need. What I want to do is really sit down with my team and make sure that we're able to put the best offer together for you. And so I'm going to need about a day or two to do that, visit with my team, take a look at the numbers. That way we can get you the best offer possible. And then I'd like to call you back. I'm free on this day or this day at this time or this time, which works best for you. They'll tell me the time. I say, great, let me go ahead and grab your email address. I'll send you an automatic calendar reminder and I'll see you at that time. So then we just go ahead and on the call, I'll schedule them in Calendly. I don't like to send them a link and say, hey, sign up for a time, because then you're out, you don't have control of that process, right? They may not sign up, they may not click the link, they may not get it. So I like to actually go into Calendly and schedule them right there on the call one. So the hook for the seller is I'm going to give you an offer on call two. That's why we need to do call two. All right. Are you disclosing to the seller that you are a wholesaler? Do you have an option period if you don't find a buyer? So the way that our purchase agreements are worded is that we just have a closing period. We are able to back out of that contract at any time for any reason, because our contract states that this contract is subject to further inspection of the property. If we find something that that makes it impossible for us to build, or makes it too expensive for us to build, or anyone else to build for that matter, then we'll probably either have to renegotiate, revisit the offer, or terminate the contract. And we explain that when we're going through the process of explaining the contract. So do I disclose that I'm a wholesaler? It's really not a disclosure. I just say that I'm a real estate investor. We have multiple different exit strategies if that comes up. The whole thing that a seller wants to know is, can you deliver on what you said you're going to deliver? And that means on our agreement. If I say I'm going to sell my property at $25,000, you said that you're going to buy it at $25,000, then that's what I want to have happen. I want to get $25,000 for my piece of property. And so oftentimes we have in our, this question comes up when we go over our purchase agreement, because we often, we explain how we have the what's the best word? I don't like the word permission, but we have the option to shop it around to our to our investor partners, to our retail partners. We may bring someone else in on the deal. We may not actually end up even holding the property or closing on it on our own. We might have to bring someone else on. And so they say, well, what does that mean? Is that the same as wholesaling and that kind of thing? When I see that it starts going down that route, I say, listen, we have multiple different exit strategies that we can use for this property. We don't know until we start really digging in to the numbers of the deal and getting these contractors to come out and giving us bids on the property. However, my commitment to you is to get this property sold. If I say I'm going to buy this property for $25,000, you're going to get $25,000 for this property. Does it matter to you if it comes out of my checking or my savings account? And typically they're like, well, it doesn't matter as long as I get the money. Great. So it doesn't matter if this arm of my company closes it, or that arm, or another person. It's about getting them back to that, what their goal is, which is to liquidate the property and get the cash for it. So usually if you explain it and you're very upfront about it, we don't have any issues with that. Very, very, very rarely. But I think honesty is always the best policy, and be as transparent as possible. A lot of people, they don't deal with real estate transactions all the time. And so they're kind of only going by what they've heard, or maybe what someone else that they know has experienced. And so, to some people, wholesaling is a bad word. But we like to always make sure that we educate with as many clear and transparent policies as possible. because at the end of the day, they just want to be paid and they don't want to be taken advantage of. And so we just make sure that we explain that. All right, if they bring up the clause about us backing up at any time for any reason, how do you navigate that? Just like I just said, listen, we might get in here and we might start doing a soil test, and we might realize like, hey, it's going to cost us, $30,000 to put a septic tank, and that's going to absolutely kill the deal. And if that's the case, then we can't do the deal anymore. That makes sense to you? Great. Yes, no, right. So that's how we explain that. All right. Lucy asked, are you asking any property related survey perk test questions at all in your calls? I ask if there's a survey, if they do have a survey or not on the property, and that's about it. I don't ask any other things, because I can typically, either they're going to tell me what they know, or they're going to tell me information that might be wrong or dated. My own due diligence anyway, so it doesn't really matter what they say, other than like the history of the property, what their motivation is for selling it. Also, exactly how old is a survey, if they have a survey, because that may save me some money by not needing to get a survey. So I'll ask that. I will ask tax questions, lien questions, if they know of anything. But again, all of that will be verified before we go to closing. So it's not super pertinent. I like to make sure that the process is as smooth and as easy as possible for both the sellers and the buyers. And I also want to make sure that I'm efficient and I'm moving through these leads very, very quickly. So I don't really get bogged down in that. We do our own due diligence. We have our processes, and we've built that system, and we rely on that system. All right. What % of your contracts don't close? Right now, oh my gosh, I think I've canceled one contract in the last, one contract probably in the last 16 months or something like that. So right now I'm pretty conservative, that I don't put anything under contract that I'm not 100% sure that I can close. Obviously there's, you have to take that with a grain of salt, but I usually like to make sure that I have my buyers in place. I've done some pre-marketing. I've talked to people already. I know what this property can fetch, and how attractive the deal can be, what my competitors are in terms of the other properties that are on the market, and I always price competitively. So I will list for under market value. That way I can get a lot of eyes and a lot of interest in the property. Will this call be available to those of us on the call to watch at a later time as you're giving golden nuggets? Awesome. Thanks for the golden nuggets comment. Love that, but I can't write that fast. Yeah, so this will be made available. I'll probably put this on YouTube as a video that you can go back and watch. I do want to share with you guys, I do have a call sequence diagram that I'm going to share my screen and show you so you can kind of see. All right, so this is the call sequence diagram. I have the, you can see we have call one. All leads go through this call one. We see if they're qualified or not. If they are qualified, or actually if they're not qualified, they'll go into a cold list, where we'll do a long-term follow-up when we have time to look at the comps and maybe come up with an offer. That will do it, but it's definitely not a priority. We want to prioritize all of the warm leads. So if they are qualified, we go ahead and we schedule a call 2, and then we run comps and determine our offer amount. On that call 2, this is where we're actually making the offer and negotiating. If they just decline and they don't want to play ball, we'll put them on a warm follow-up sequence. We'll also put them on a warm follow-up sequence if we're negotiating, but we just can't come to an agreement just yet. We'll put them on a follow-up sequence. That way, every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, we'll reach it back out to them and say, hey, just wanted to touch base with you, see if we can revisit the offer, see if anything else has changed, that type of thing. But if our verbal offer is accepted, then we will send that roadmap to closing, and we review that on the phone, make sure that we align all of their expectations, and making sure that that is very clear about what steps they can expect and how the order of the closing will go. And then we create and send a contract while that seller is on the phone. So we have a template in DocuSign that we just quickly fill in the purchase price, the name of the seller, the address, the closing date, and then that takes maybe a minute or two, and we'll go ahead and send that over to them. We stay on the phone with them while they open up that contract, they read through it, and we're able to walk them through and ask if there's any questions. No questions, we go ahead and encourage them to click the sign button to make sure that it transmits correctly into our system and that we get it and we don't have to delay anything or bug them again for that contract. So this call sequence diagram, that's going to be available to you if you would like it. Just go ahead and drop the word call in the comments, and I will get out that a copy of that to you for sure if you would like a copy of our call sequence diagram. So that's sort of the flow that we use whenever we do our calls. All right, so let's see. Any other questions? Do you typically have buyers lined up for the properties you're seeking? It depends on the market. If it's a market area that I know really well and we've done a lot of deals in, then I have built up a pretty significant buyers list in that area because we've done several deals in that area. So like right now, we had a deal that just closed last week, and on the day of closing, we had a realtor reach out with an offer on that property, but it was already sold. And so we just got another deal under contract in that same neighborhood, and I was able to contact her and say, hey, listen, we've got this deal. Are you interested? And your seller's interested, or is your buyer interested? And she was like, yes, I'm going to send you an offer right now. So that's one of the perks of like going deep into a specific market and building a network. All right. Let's see. What if they are not on their computer when you do the second call? So that's a good question. I haven't really had an issue with that before. Typically, most people have smartphones nowadays, so they can just look at the contract on their smartphone. That's one of the great things about these apps like DocuSign, PandaDoc, something like that, is that they're mobile phone friendly. And so they can literally just go through it. I'll explain what every term of the contract is, and then there's a big button that they just click to sign it. All right, so let's see. Call. Great. Yep, we'll get out those call sequence diagrams to you. Thank you for this fun session. Thank you for joining. This is super fun. I like to geek out about process and systems. It's really one of my favorite things to talk about because the land business can be done remotely, as we all know, and systems can really make the difference for you in that. All right, what do you say regarding no earnest deposit? Yeah, so sometimes that has sometimes that's come up where they're like, well, I want a $2,000 earnest money deposit, or I want a $3,000 deposit. I just say, listen, we don't do deposits just because that's not how we do things. We don't like to tie up a lot of our money in deposits. But what I will tell you is if you find a buyer for your property that you want to exit the contract out of, and you want to go with that buyer, then by all means, let's talk about it. And it's your property at the end of the day. Now, I know that that's a little bit maybe a little bit controversial because some people are like, are you kidding me? You just locked it up and then you're telling them that they can sell it. I have had maybe one or two people actually actively go and try to find another buyer. Most of the time, people just want the types of deals that we're going after, the types of sellers that we're working with. They just want a smooth, easy, fast process. So do we come across those that are going to like lock it up, sign this contract and then sign another contract with another person, another contract? Yes. And unless you are prepared to sue or something like that, which I don't like getting into that at all. It's just too much headache for what it's worth. And so if they want to find something, then by all means, go ahead. Now, I'm going to give you a caveat here. That's for like if we are standing to make, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 maybe. If we're looking at like a $50,000 net profit deal and above, I'm going to be putting down a deposit because I want to make sure that we lock that up. So if it's a larger deal, then of course, that's the caveat. We are going to will put down earnest money if that's something that they absolutely need and that they want to make them feel a little bit better about the deal, then absolutely. But if we're talking about these quick little infill lots that are like, maybe a $10,000 max net profit, and they haven't done anything with the property at all in the last 20 years, and they want a $3,000 deposit, probably not going to happen. So let's see. Hope that answers your question. All right, Kendall, I've never felt my time was not well spent joining any sessions you have, be it interviews or this one. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's so kind. I that's such a high compliment. Thank you so much. Thank you for an awesome call. Thank you guys. All right, looking forward to listening to the entire call. Just popped in. Yep, you can grab the replay. I'll also be posting this on YouTube. All right, this was fantastic. Yes, thank you guys so much. Again, I hope this has been very helpful for you. I love talking about systems and processes. If you just want to jam about that, shoot me a DM in Facebook Messenger. Happy to always chat. If you haven't joined my Facebook group, Only Land Fans, please make sure that you do that. I like to have lots of conversations in that group as well. We can continue the conversation there. And please also make sure that you check out my Only Land Fans podcast if you haven't done that yet. I interview 6- and 7-figure land flippers about how they've built and run their businesses, how they scale, how they've grown. I have people that flip properties from flip properties in Florida all the way from Spain. I have people tomorrow. I'll be interviewing Jonathan Doe about how he makes $100K a month flipping infill lots in Florida. So lots of really vast levels of experience. We do master classes on there. Well, we have master class episodes. Callan Faulkner has been on there. Alicia Jarrett talking about lead generation, the REI journey. So some really fantastic people who are just incredible. So we'd love to have you join us on those podcast interviews as well. And so if you want to join our community, head over to onlylandfans.com. Again, that's onlylandfans.com. Looks like we don't have any other questions. Again, one last reminder, if you want the copy of my call sequence diagram that I shared earlier, go ahead and pop the word call down in the comments. We'll go ahead and get that out to you, and happy to chat about it. So, all right, guys. This has been super fun. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you have a great week. We'll see you tomorrow on our live virtual meetup with Jonathan Doe, 6 p.m. Central, and we'll see you in the Facebook group, Only Land Fans. All right, thanks so much, guys. Take care. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.